Good evening, everyone. My name is Ms Reid, the founder of DAAAMN DADDY.com, where daddy issues drive discussion, and this is the discussion room. Tonight's episode's focus is me, Ms Reid, the creator and founder of DAAAMN DADDY.com, and our episode is hosted by the Damn Diary. For those of you looking to discover, analyze, and address your needs, this is the tool for you. It's a resource and guided workbook where you get to look face to face at the relationship or lack thereof that you have with your father figure, and how it shows up in your life today, what you wish could be different about it, and what tools you can use to not let it have negative impacts on you today. The title of this episode is Meet Ms Reid, because apparently some people don't know me, and that's not to be boisterous, but I think I did a poor job of considering new listeners when I launched the discussion room and somebody sent a little birdie to tell me, hey, you might want to let the people know who you are. And here I am. I started off with a blog on WordPress.com 3 years ago next week called Dealing with Daddy Issues. And at the time, I had been a year out from my job in the classroom. I was a Baltimore City educator, and it had been like 6 months on unemployment. My unemployment had just ran out. My mother made me switch over my license to Maryland, and the license was like $72. So I was like on my last dime. And at that time, I had been listening to the Power Hour, which was a weekly conference call, something like this, but on the phone, not face to face, hosted by Nehemiah Davis and Jamelia Kamara. And they interviewed people like Tiffany the Budgetnista and Tanya Rapley from My Fat Finance, and Zim, the founder of Travel Noir, which she's since been able to sell to Blavity. And I'm like, dang, all these young black people out here thriving and making lanes for themselves. And I had always wanted to write a book. I won a cab ride. A cab driver told me I had 5 years to get my book written. And I had downloaded a tool on my Nook called Blogging to Book. And then something happened at my mom's house that just kind of like made me like, all right, this is it. This is the topic. You're going to talk about your daddy issues. Because up until then, I really didn't think I had any. I was on the path to having 3 degrees by 23. Due to circumstances I won't rant about this evening, I have completed the coursework for my 2 master's degrees, but have not been able to procure them and have them physically in hand. And I try not to be bitter about that. I do try. But at that time, that's what my life looked like. That's what my life looked like. I was 24. I had just turned 24. I was paying rent in Baltimore, but I was a squatter in my mom's home because I figured if I had to pay rent, I would not use my gas and electric and eat all her food. And she was like over that, and I was over it. And I just was like so upset that none of the places I had been applying to have been responding. And it was like, look, sis, you got to do your own thing. And a recurring theme on those Power Hour calls was just start. So I took a shot on me, and I just started. And I started opening up about my 3 primary father figures. My biological father, who I refer to as Buddha, who everybody refers to as Buddha. Stepdad number 1 and stepdad number 2, who you'll more frequently hear me refer to as my sister's dad. When I converted over to Damn Daddy, it was late 2015. I want to say October 2015, because I was doing a vlog. So I was blogging on the Dealing with Daddy Issues.wordpress.com, and I was vlogging and doing videos like this on DAAAMNDaddy.wordpress.com. And I had gone to Boardroom Bosses, I think maybe the first or second one, hosted by Nehemiah Davis. Again, Neil is the truth. If you don't know him, get to know him. And I was in the room with some bosses who are doing big things now, like Sonia, the student loan doctor. And I told them that I was considering this name change to Damn Daddy. And people was like, ooh, I like that. I like that. But a lot of people were talking about how they are selective with the brands they partner with. And I was like, yeah, so with the work you guys do, would you guys like partner with me? And it was like, see, sis, the name is catchy, but it's kind of shaky. So I was hesitant, but I took the leap and I committed to DAAAMN Daddy. And the three A's represent my three primary father figures. And it has been a trying experience because obviously damn is a term of profanity. So for some people, they're not attracted to that. They're not attracted to that. But for me, it had a deeper meaning. I went to my friend who created my logo. Shout out to Brandon Reed's Design Solutions. And I told him, I said, I kind of wanted to look like the Pep Boys logo. And I want the faces to be in the A's. And it didn't necessarily come out how I envisioned it, but I love the logo he came up with. And trust me, he sent me 275,000 emails because I was like, okay, no, I want to like this. All right, I want to like that. Okay, I like this element. Can you change that? And I really had a great experience working with him, creating that logo. And I even contemplated when I anticipated having the three faces represent the A's in DAAAMN, having my uncle's face be the A in Daddy because he has been the person who really raised me. And I'm kind of glad it didn't work out that way. Like, no shade to anybody, but I just kind of felt like, one, my uncle has made it clear several occasions that he's not a dad. So, he don't like being called out on Father's Day and all those things. And he does not regret being that role and stepping up and playing that, but he just feels like he didn't earn it because he don't have any biological kids. So that's a different story for a different day. But that's the story of how DAAAMN Daddy came to be. And I think the hardest part about blogging in the beginning for me was using the word daddy. One of my earliest blog posts is titled The D Word because I never refer to any of my father figures as daddy. Like, a story my mom frequently tells is how stepdad number one took me to the mall when I was like 3 years old. And we saw Buddha, and he was just kind of upset. Some guys, they were young at the time and kind of hot to see his kid out in the mall with another man. And he was like, "Meek, come to daddy." And I just stayed with stepdad number one. And, he asked me one time what's his name. And I was like, Buddha. And I don't recall ever calling him dad or daddy or anything like that. And even as a child, when I referred to him, it was as my biological father. And as far as my stepdad or my sister's dad, I never called them dad or anything like that. So I called them both by their first name. And I think more so because that's what with stepdad number one, I called him that because most of our time together was spent around other adults. So that's what the other adults were calling him. And when his children, my step-siblings, were present, they called him daddy. But I knew he wasn't my dad. Like, he definitely loved me like he is my dad. But I knew that Buddha was my father. So I had never crossed that line in addressing him as such. And then for my sister's dad, I was just old enough to know better. And it just never stuck. And he never forced it. He never forced it with me. I won't say that that's not something he wanted or that he's not bothered by the fact that I still refer to stepdad number one as stepdad and him as my sister's dad. I definitely am aware that's something that has rubbed him the wrong way a time or two. But I just never really used the word daddy. I never really use it in conversation. I usually ask people about their father, or, if I know their father's name, I'll say the person's name or whatever term of endearment they use. But I'm not really big on the word daddy, which is so interesting because I'm both dealing with daddy issues and DAAAMN Daddy have the word daddy right there in the title. And I think it took a really long time for me to get comfortable with using that word, writing it, talking about the blog, things of that nature. And we here now. So I'm comfortable now, but that's just, fun fact, funny little tip. So I was told to talk about why I got into blogging about daddy issues and my backstory. So, as you all are now aware, 3 primary father figures. My biological father was incarcerated the day I was born. On the day I graduated kindergarten, 8th grade, high school, and from Howard University. And he missed so many other important days in between there. And I had so much other family there that I never really paid much attention to it until I was graduating from Howard. And I was like, dang, like, it may not even been Howard. I think when I was applying to graduate for my master's degree is when I realized, like, dang, I done had all these graduations, and this dude wasn't at any of them. And I remember being a kid in class and telling people in the classroom or telling the teachers and adults my dad's in jail. And not anything that I was ever embarrassed about. I don't think it was something I even knew that other people would be embarrassed about, and nobody ever teased me for it. It was just a matter of fact. I remember going to visit him on several occasions, and they were not ever unpleasant occasions for me. We would sit and color together. I distinctly remember coloring a picture of Bugs Bunny with him during one visit. And it just was something, it was a matter of fact. That's the best way I can describe it. It was a matter of fact that my dad was incarcerated the day I was born, during my kindergarten graduation, my 8th grade graduation, my high school graduation, and when I graduated from Howard University. And I can't recall ever spending a single Father's Day with him. And for that reason, I talk about those things on my blog. And somebody approached me last year about hosting a fatherless Father's Day brunch. And we're going to be doing that. Your favorite life coach, Letitia Carr, and I are going to be partnering and doing that this coming June. So if that's something you're interested in attending, being a part of, learning more about, definitely hit either of us up. You can follow me on all social media at DAAAMN DADDY, and that's DAAAMN Daddy. Again, that's DAAAMN Daddy, and she is Letitia.Carr with 2 R's. So yeah. That's that. Like I said, I was probably 25 when I asked my mom, like, hey, have I ever spent Father's Day with him? And she was like, I don't know, maybe the first one. And the fact that even my mom couldn't remember that was kind of tough for me. And it wasn't a uncomfortable boo-hoo, I want to cry tough, but just the simple fact that that person hadn't even at the time of that conversation made a big enough impact for me to feel his absence on that day. I used to tell people all the time Father's Day was my favorite holiday because that's when, in my family, that's when cookout season starts. Mother's Day, everybody wants to go out and have lunch or brunch. You do nice things for mom. But on Father's Day, cookouts. The men put the little aprons on, they pull out them uncle shoes, get on the grill. My friends and I used to wash my mom's car as a Father's Day gift to her for playing both roles. But past that, I don't recall in the first 2.5 decades of my life being bothered by or acknowledging his absence or whether or not I've ever spent Father's Day with him. There's a whole category on my blog called Buddhist Damage, and I named it that because it's catchy. I don't necessarily feel damaged, but I do acknowledge that I've adapted and learned certain behaviors and attitudes and opinions about things based on my relationship with him, the things I've seen him do, the things that we didn't have a chance to develop early on in our relationship. And I realized lately, for those of you who don't know, let's see, this is February. So maybe about 5.5, 6 months ago, we'll say 6. No, not 6, 5. October, November, December, January. So about 4.5 months ago, I reached out to my biological father. I reached out to Buddha, and just asked him several questions about himself, about me, about what he liked, what he didn't like, the choices he made. I was just ready. I had been seeing somebody and that kind of went left, and throughout that time with that person, they were constantly encouraging me. You need to go reach out to your dad, talk to your dad. And I felt like just because they were able to rekindle and start over with their dad, and their dad happened to have a similar backstory as Buddha, I didn't like feeling pressure to do the same with the expected outcome of a happily ever after type of thing. And when I reconnected with him, a lot of the things that I asked him, I kind of already knew the answer to, and some of which I feel he was dishonest with his responses based on the things that I recall for myself or have talked with other people about. And I just let me know he wasn't ready to take those steps for that part of that conversation. But I did meet up with him around Thanksgiving time because I had hit a low point in life financially, not overall. Like I'm happy. I was happy. I was in Philly every other weekend. You know, I'm speaking at this event. I'm helping this person run that event. I'm volunteering for the women's conference. Like, let Instagram tell it. Sis is making money moves out here. And, you know, according to Bank of America, the lie detector determined that was a lie. But the people that I go see in Philly, you know, they value me enough that they always make sure I have gas money to get home or a place to lay my head, you know, without cost while I'm visiting. So I was living it up, you know, taking all these risks, no job, living life. And it was like, oh, these bills ain't coming to play. And I was like, hey, I need some help. And I know this is kind of awkward, but like all the usual people that I ask for help, they ain't got it. And I really need your help. And they came through. No further questions asked. No, you know, did you only reach out to me because you needed money? And I felt so terrible about the timing because it was literally like 2 weeks after I initially reached out to him that I wound up in a position where I needed help. And I was scared to ask. But it was like, look, sis, you ain't got no options, okay? Okay. Your phone is ringing off the hook, and they about to make your phone stop ringing altogether if you don't get some help. And that was October, but by the end of November, about Thanksgiving time, I was in New Jersey, and I made it my business to not come back to Maryland without saying thank you and expressing gratitude face to face. Like, the type of help that I was getting deserved physical face to face appreciation to know that you are not being used. And in the maybe 35 minutes to an hour that I spent with him that day, I realized that I don't know him. I know my experiences with him from childhood. I know what his siblings and my mom have shared with me about their experiences with him, but I didn't really get to know him for myself. So something that I share frequently is that my mom never talked ill of him. Like, can't tell you sis had anything negative to say other than maybe hide your purse and stuff, hide your kids, hide your wife. And at that time I learned but I learned when I was old enough to ask that he had a problem with abusing substances. I don't know the length or the duration of that problem, but he had stolen some things from people for a long time. And like, I thought it was something that happened when I was a preteen, but when I started asking more questions, my mom said that he stole some jewelry from my aunt's child, who was 4 months older than me, and had given it to me. And my aunt came to my mom looking for it, and my mom was like, here you go. So it was just something that was a pattern. And I remember one of the reasons that I decided as a teenager that I was just done, I was going on a field trip. And again, I was in a situation where, like, I needed some cash. Just some spending money for the field trip. We were going to Boston, history club, super nerd. And he told my mom to give me the money and he would Western Union it back to her right away. And she did that. And she was kind of upset because she was like, listen, if I had the money to give her, I wouldn't be asking you to give her the money. But he was like, I can't get to you all before she get on the bus. So, give her what you got and I'll give it back to you. And I found out later. And at that time, one of his nephews was living with my mom temporarily. And he was like, why you always giving my uncle a hard time? My uncle a good person. And I was like, listen, I don't have no time for games, okay? And come to find out, he stole the money that he gave to me for the trip from my uncle. And my cousin was like, oh, sis, you was right. My bad. He took all this money from Unc mad. And I was so hurt because on all the times that he wasn't there for me, his brother, my uncle, that he took the money from was. And I was just like, if you just asked him, then told him it was for me, he would have given it to you. Or I would have just asked him. So I was really crushed behind that. But that wasn't the point of this story. That was one of my memories of him that didn't end in a great light. And that was the point in which I decided, like, nah, dude, don't call me no more. Don't text me no more. And I kind of cut him off for several years, about 10. And, even if I saw him and we were in the same place at my uncle's house, at his mother's house, nope. Hi, that's it. I just did not engage because I felt personally disrespected. I felt like I had stolen from my uncle, and I didn't like that feeling. And I just didn't like the fact that you could have asked, or you could have told me no. And right now, as I'm telling you all this story, I still carry that attitude with me. I never connected it to that moment or that event, but maybe that's where it stems from. Not saying it is, but maybe that's where it stems from. Like, I have a serious problem with being in a relationship with men, and they will say, yeah, we can go out on Saturday, knowing that they have other plans, and they don't double book themselves because they're scared to tell me no. And I don't know if it's this personality where people feel afraid of saying no to me. But I've had to tell several men, like, you could just tell me no. I don't ever want to feel like I'm in a relationship with somebody who doesn't want to be there. I don't ever want to feel like I'm forcing someone to be somewhere they don't want to be. I want you to be with me because you want to be with me. And I want you to do things because you are genuinely interested in doing them. If you're not interested, tell me you're not interested. I might be mad, but I'll get over it. I appreciate the truth. So yeah, that was that. And this past Thanksgiving, I went and I said thank you, and I didn't get all his messages come through because I was driving. So I show up and he's like, you ready to go get something to eat? I'm like, why is he trying to take me to get something to eat? Like, don't he know I gotta get on the road? I have somewhere to be. And he wound up taking me to one of my favorite spots in Jersey City. And at first I was like, oh wow, somebody tell him I like this place? Like, this is really one of my favorite places. Oh, legit. How he know about this place? And I used to live down the street from that place. That's called Carib del Sol. My favorite Dominican aunties is in there. But then it dawned on me that when I was in elementary school, he used to take his girlfriend at the time's children to school and drop them off at my school. And I used to feel so disrespected by that. And I never told him that, and maybe I will one day. But while we were in the restaurant getting our food, he knew my favorite place quickly faded to that's why. And that may not even be why. My mother was like, you always overthinking things and reading too much and everything. But like, my enthusiasm dropped because I was like, oh, that's right. He used to drop them kids off at my school, and that's probably how he know about this restaurant. He opened the doors for me. He helped me navigate out of a sticky situation. It was a woman who was going through some things in the the little bodega across the street. We went to get some beverages real quick, and sis was telling me her life. Like, when I tell y'all it's a gift, like, strangers just feel comfortable telling me their lives, and she's showing me battle scars, and the boyfriend done cut her up and bruised her up, and it's like, dang, I'm a survivor of domestic violence. No, that wasn't a joke. That's literally what she said. But anyway, I feel like she was about to ask me for a ride or something, and he kind of like was like, all right, come on, let's go, you know, in a way that was respectful to her, but got me out of the store without having to tell a lie or anything of that nature. And I realized, like, like, he okay dude, you know. And it was one of those things where I did not feel like he was trying to impress me. I have a sixth sense. Like, I do not like when I feel like people are doing things solely with the intention to impress me. And I felt like, oh, okay, you know, he opening doors and stuff, and you know, he got some sense about him, some respect. And I never felt disrespected by his direct treatment of me, but always about how his actions didn't match with his words. Like, I really had a problem with that disappointment, and saying you're gonna be somewhere and then not showing up, telling me you're gonna take me someplace and then not following through. And I'm the same way to this day when I'm dating somebody. Like, don't tell me we going out and not prepare me for us to not be going out. Like, I definitely understand things come up, because I don't always have the opportunity to keep my commitments. I had to cancel on my homegirl a couple weeks ago when I had the opportunity to speak on that panel. But I said that in advance. Like, as soon as I knew, I was like, hey, sis, I got this great opportunity. I'm not going to make it to your thing, though. Like, if I get there, it's going to be real, real late. And I'd rather just not come as opposed to having y'all wait up for me. So I just appreciate when people are real with me. And I think that in that moment in November, I had a great 35 minutes to an hour with him. And I didn't feel like he was putting on airs. And I didn't feel like he was trying to impress me or win me over or show me that he's this type of person that I didn't know. But I realized that I didn't know him. I knew of his actions from the past. I knew of his disappointments that he caused me in the past, but I didn't know him. Another thing that I still don't have the answers around is just how I had to clarify that I was not joking. I was just repeating what the woman shared with me in the store that day. I had been told that his father was physically abusive with his mother. However, when I asked questions, neither him nor his siblings really have anything negative to say about their dad. And I met him. I don't particularly care for their dad because he's always mixing me up with my cousin. And I feel like we look alike, but we don't look that much alike. And our names are completely different. You know, put some respect on my name. I don't know. I think I decided at maybe like 7 years old that I wasn't here for their dad. And I don't know him either. I'm going to be clear. I don't know him either. But I realized as a child the difference between their dad as my grandfather and my mom's dad as my grandfather is my grandpa, my mom's dad, was a busy man, but he always had time for a relationship. And I feel like their dad was there for a show. He would show up, bring some crab sticks, give everybody a couple dollars, and ride off in his pimp wagon, and that was that. Like, he never really made the effort to get to know me or know the difference between me and my cousin. And my cousins seemed to only really call on him when they wanted money. And I was not that kid. Like, I don't want to be bothered with you. If I only got to call you when I want some money, I don't want to be bothered with you. So I realized that. I had also been told that my father was like insanely brilliant with his words. And I should have pulled it out, and I didn't think that far in advance. But you can see pictures of it on my blog. He used to send me cards. He used to send me cards and letters and draw like cards, that homemade cards, not Hallmark and none of that other stuff, you know, down to the barcode on the back. Make them things himself. And for a while, I had done the same in middle school. I used to sell cards, make people's Valentine's Day cards for them. If you in need, holla at me. I might return to my roots and get a little holiday coin if somebody needs some work done. But he was very talented, and a lot of people who we got the same face. So a lot of people who recognize me as his child. Oh, I used to pay your father to write my essays for me, and I always got an A when he did my work. And I was told that his mom wasn't someone who acknowledged his wins. And I imagine that being the mother of 7 children, it wasn't that anything intentional. She just was, being the mother of 7 children and working and maintaining, especially once her relationship with their father was over. But I imagine that played a role in some of his choices and poor decision making later in life, is not really feeling supported in all his talents and such by his mama. I feel like I'm rambling at this point, y'all, and I don't mean to do that. I just tell stories sometimes. It gets like that. But yeah, like, I didn't know him. I still don't. I'm getting to know him, and I feel better about getting to know him at this time. But something I want to share as far as Buddhist damage is that my whole life, my cousins have been telling me he's such a great uncle. And his brother that's right underneath him, I felt like was such a great uncle to me, until I talked to that brother's son, and he felt like my father is the worst. And I had a conversation with Tiara Nicole in episode 8 of the discussion room about how the requirements for being an uncle differ from the requirements of being a father or a dad. And I never thought about that until having that conversation with her. But I realized that was a common theme amongst my cousins and I, that we all felt like we had these great uncles, but when it came to the father department, somebody was dropping the ball. Even my cousins, who I felt like they had the best dad out of all our uncles. In adulthood, they had their own daddy issues with their dad. Some of them felt like they had the funds daddy who was tossing money at them, like I thought about their dad. You sometimes repeat what you see, whether intentionally or unintentionally. And if they don't feel that they have a negative relationship with their dad, and they saw him show up and distribute funds, and that was a great relationship with him for them, then they just continue that for their children, not realizing that their children need and require more. And it's kind of something of a parenting epidemic, okay? Just a little bit of a parenting epidemic, just a little bit. But moving right along, when I was 2, my mom got into a relationship with stepdad number 1. And he was what my mom likes to call fun daddy. And she tells him all the time, even though his kids are grown, like, they grew up in a different state after a certain point. Their mom relocated, and she was telling him, you need to be more strict because you just fun daddy. You fun daddy, and everybody wants to be with fun daddy. And my relationship with him, I feel like he spoiled me. Like, I don't even mean with material things. I just think as a whole, I have been a well-loved child. Well-loved adults. Even though sometimes I be struggling, I be looking at my Facebook memories like, dang, since 2010, I've been having these kind of feelings, where I feel unloved, or I have a moment where I feel neglected, or whatever the case may be. However, my relationship with stepdad number 1, I kind of feel guilty sometimes, because when his kids relocated, I had him to myself. He was there for kindergarten graduation. We went to Sizzler. No, we went to Sizzler for other things, as I liked Sizzler back in the day. They used to have dinosaur nuggets. delicious. But we went to BBQ's, which is my second favorite place up in the north. And you know, his family was there, and I was a part of his family. We used to spend Thanksgiving at my mom's family house and Christmas at his family's house. And, you know, I think a lot of my foundational routines and traditions came in with him. He displayed a lot of confidence in me and belief in me. Like, I had an imaginary friend. My mother was like, get that chick out of my house. And he was like, oh, she got an imaginary friend? Well, where's she sitting at? You want me to make some room for her on the couch? You want me to make her a sandwich too? And my mother was like, you need to stop feeding into her foolishness, okay? And I just felt like, yeah, he on my side. I don't know. My mom was the strict parent, and he got to be fun daddy, and I was kind of spoiled by that. Still am. Like, she don't like it when the three of us are together, because then they want to play memory lane and reminisce on things, and usually him and I have the same recollection about certain facts, but he spoiled me. He came with kids. Like, for me, an only child back then, that was amazing. So I had instant siblings with him. And we just did fun stuff. Like, we took vacations. We went to see my grandparents. We would go down to see my aunt, who was living in Virginia at the time. So I have a lot of fun memories attached to our time together. One thing I regret, we had family pictures, me, him, and my mom, but never any with the two of them and his children and me all together. So that's one thing that I asked my mom recently, like, how come y'all never did that? Like, was it their mom? Was she gonna be mad if something happened? You know, but yeah. And I'll say my abandonment issues have a lot to do with Buddha promising me things and not following through. But my trust issues have a lot to do with stepdad number one, because he was so fun, and him and my mom had such a great relationship. And even if she tells you about it herself, you know, they was making it on $1 in a dream, working at the post office. My mom worked at the post office. I don't remember if he was working at the airport yet back then. Whatever he was doing, I can't recall. It's almost 3 decades ago, guys. I'm getting old. They made it work. We got to go on vacations. We got to see and do new things. They were balling on a budget, okay? And a lot of people still to this day, if I go out with them, because y'all know my 35 and up card, I be hanging with my over 40 crew all the time when I'm back in Jersey. When we go places, like, people be like, oh, they got rhyming names. I'm not gonna tell you their names, but my mom and stepdad number one got rhyming names, and you know, it's like Phil and Lil, you know, Phil and Lil's in the spot. Oh, what's up, Phil and Lil? You know, I know Phil and Lil are brother and sister, but just go with it. I feel like they had a really public relationship. Like, I feel like if Instagram was out in the early mid-90s, they would be relationship goals. They would be that couple you see to be matching all the time and taking all the pictures and all over the place. So when their relationship ended, that was hard for me, because it ended because he impregnated another woman. And, you know, when you 9, you don't understand that. You're like, oh, okay. I tell this all the time. I was like, oh, so the baby coming to live here? I'm like, oh, okay. My other siblings, they went to live with their mom. This baby coming to live here? Still in that stork mentality, not really understanding. But I say that my trust issues came from there, because for me, it's so hard if somebody loved you that much and you had all that fun together, and you got along with their family for the most part, their family got along with you for the most, you know, opposite, you know, him and your family, you and his family, everybody is copacetic. It's like, what did you need that I wasn't giving you? So it makes me cognizant of when things are going too perfect in a situation, and listening closely to what people are saying. I always tell people that my ex, who I refer to as Paranoid Pete in a lot of my old videos and blog posts, he and I will be having two different conversations. Because if it's 8 o'clock in the morning and you tell me you off today, and then when we talking at 8 o'clock in the evening, I'm like, oh, how was your day? And you telling me you was at work. Oh, you was at work? How was work? You're not realizing that I already caught you on the line. I just want to see how deep you're going to dig yourself into it. You committed. You wasn't committed to me, but you was committed to that lie. And you was going to tell me about your day at work when you told me this morning you was off. So, I don't know. I think a lot of my trust issues come there. And then something that I shared a few months ago was kind of feeling like an outsider. I never had that feeling as a child. As a child, low-key, I felt like I was his favorite. Like, I wasn't necessarily his kid, but I was his favorite. And that's not a big thing, you know. I'm not my mom's favorite kid, and I'm hers. I think his son, my stepbrother, is her favorite kid. And we all agreed to that. But I don't know. I'm not going to claim that just in case I make one of my stepsisters mad. But I always felt like I was his favorite. And I never knew if it was like giving me extra attention because you're not really my dad, or if you really just vibe with me on that level. And I think a lot of it just had to do with availability. I was his available child when his children moved away. So he had a lot more presence in my life, physically, day-to-day life. He was there when I turned 16, bought balloons to the school and just things like that. And I was happy about those things. And something I learned later, something I felt at the time was like when they broke up, he broke up with me too. And that was hard. It's like, I didn't do nothing wrong. And I remember my first little boyfriend and me was at the library. See, I'm just a little slick little kid. I ain't do all of that lying and saying I was somewhere I wasn't, you know. I was at the library. Found me a little nerd boyfriend. He was smarter than me because he convinced me to do his homework. Yeah. But I genuinely think that besides manipulation, he was smarter than me. I just keep thinking about how he knew what a Chagall was in art class in the 8th grade. Like, what? We on Van Gogh and Picasso, and here you come talking about some Chagall. What are you saying, sir? Anyway, my little boyfriend and I, my little brainiac boyfriend and I was outside the library swapping spit. And he saw me. He told my mama on me. He was like, you know, I low-key wanted to pull up on her. But, you know, I didn't know how you was going to react since me and you not together. So I always knew he was still looking out for me. And I later found out that my sister's father had asked that he back off from my life just a little bit. Give him some space to step up. And, you know, I don't think that when my mom agreed to that, she realized how that would impact me by not having at least a conversation with me. I think I was old enough for them to have at least had a conversation with me about how continuing to spend holidays with his family, or him coming around to wish me happy birthday, or do certain things that they would have continued to do if they were still in one relationship, were inappropriate for the new relationship she was building. I think I was mature enough to understand those things. I probably would not have liked them, but I think I was mature enough to understand those things, and I really wish they had taken the time to have that conversation with me, because I spent a lot of years angry and hurt, like what I did, only to find out later that it wasn't anything that I did, and it wasn't a back off on his own part or his own feeling where he dropped me. And I'll say this, his child that he had outside of his relationship with my mom had a sister my age. So I felt like, you replaced both of us? I was so hurt, like so hurt. Still to this day, sometimes I'll be salty about it. But it really caused further friction with me and my sister's father when I found that out, because I was like, so ain't nobody asked you to do all that. So yeah, I was 9, and my mom ended one relationship, and then we met this man, and At the kids' arrest the next day while she was out shopping for me, and then the next thing I know, this man is taking us places, and I am not ready for this transition at all. And all my friends like him because he could sing and he could cook, and we going fancy, fun places, and just something just didn't sit well with sis. It was that feeling, that feeling that you was putting on airs, and I'll say Maz. I think he's a great dude. No shade whatsoever towards him. We have a much better relationship now. But 9-year-old me was not here for that man. Okay? Wasn't here for it. And I will say that maybe, I don't know if I was the first, I don't know if my mom was the first woman he dated who had a child. I feel like that she wasn't. I feel like she wasn't, based on vague memories. However, I feel like at the time, it seemed more like he wanted me to like him so that she would like him. I don't think that at that time I felt like his efforts with me were genuine. I felt like he had ulterior motives. Like, okay, you want to do fun things with me, not because you want to do fun things with me, or that you genuinely have paid attention to me and know that I'm interested in this thing. You want brownie points from her. So I gave him a hard time, okay? I gave him all of the HE double hockey sticks because something inside me felt like, no, dude, I know this game and I don't want to play it. And I also feel like their relationship kind of broke my bond with me and my mom. That was the first time I recall her not listening to me or not taking my opinion into consideration. Like, people call it reading spirits and stuff and chakras and all of that, and I'm not going to even pretend for 5 seconds I understand all of that. I have taken more interest in it lately, but I know and I recall reading people's energy from a very early age. Like, I remember my mom trying to go on a date when I was little, okay? And we were in South Carolina, and I was like, I see red. And then she went on the date with the dude, and things were unpleasant. We'll just say that. And the next time I told her, I see red, she listened to me. But by then, by the time she met my sister's dad, she wasn't listening to me. You know, I don't know if she was still hurt from what happened with her and stepdad number one, but I felt like I told her, like, hey, lady, not this one. Nope, not this one. And she was like, kid, stay in a kid's place. And I was like, I'm trying to tell you something. Don't do it. Mind your business. And there was an occasion when I was maybe, I think my mom was pregnant with my sister. I used to have lots of slumber parties. Had bunk beds, and I used to have lots of guests, you know, people from the old neighborhood, people from school. You know, on this particular occasion, we were playing, I think, airport. I had a little VTech computer back then. I used to be, where do you like to go today? You know, fake flight attendant, and sit at the dining room table like it was on an airplane somewhere. And I think we cooked or something like that. And I think maybe I wasn't supposed to touch the stove, but my friends that were spending the night were old enough to touch the stove. And whatever the case may be, it may not have anything to do with the stove, but I remember I said something to him and he hit me in my chest. And I went underneath the dining room table and cried. And my friends saw it, and I was embarrassed and peeking under the TV. You okay? And when I told my mom about it, she didn't believe me. And I think that hurt me more than anything else. That she didn't believe me because I felt like that was the first time. Why would I lie? I wasn't a liar. I didn't have a reputation as a liar. I had an imaginary friend, but I wasn't somebody who was just always making up imaginary scenarios or anything like that. And I think that more than anything hurt me as far as my relationship with my mom is concerned. And then when she had my sister, I felt like, wow, this guy is permanent now. When I was 13, they took a little break from their relationship, and I remember having a conversation with him to not dip out on my sister. Like, my dad dipped out on me. Like, hey, you and my mom not together no more, but please don't let that affect your relationship with the kid. And he hugged me, and I felt like he let a tear drop, and he was like, I won't. And I feel like he didn't really live up to that, and I think that maybe it was hurt. You know, men get hurt too, and maybe he didn't really know how to navigate being a father without being in a relationship with the mother of his child. But that bothered me because I felt like, you know, I asked you to do one thing, just one thing, to not dip out on the kid because your relationship with my mom fell apart. And eventually they got back together. And then he and I had that one physical altercation where I decided you wasn't just going to hit me without me hitting you back. And I got upset again because my mom told my grandfather about it. And my grandfather took his side. And not because of the facts, but because I said to him while hitting him, you're not my father. My grandfather took personal offense to that statement. It's like, but why? Why do you care that I told him the truth? He was hitting me, Grandpa. He's a grown man and he hit me, Grandpa. So that's two incidents where I felt like my family was like not having my back when it came to this dude. And like I said, we are in a much better place now. We grew to have our own relationship because we bonded over cooking. A lot of my creative recipes and my willingness to try new things came from learning from him and my uncle in the kitchen. And the two of them used to have like chili cook-offs, whose chili is best, and grilling steaks, and I'm gonna stuff my chicken with broccoli and cheese, or I'm gonna stuff my chicken with mushrooms and whatever. You know, we had a lot of fun in the kitchen, and I got to build a relationship with him in that way, and not necessarily hold on to those other incidents that hurt. But I learned later that, you know, hurt people hurt people. And he had some of his own personal issues that he was dealing with about his childhood. Perfect along those lines, I had written this down maybe a month ago or so from somebody's Instagram live. Her name is Janae. The residual impact of your childhood still affects you in your adulthood. And I know I say many things like that on my blog, on this podcast, on my social media, but the residual impact of your childhood still affects you in your adulthood is the truth. And what I think people lose with that piece of information is that if you don't heal the residual impacts of your childhood while you're in your adulthood, you toss those impacts onto the next generation. Because he was hurt about something that happened to him when he was a kid or when he was an adult, facing and confronting and discovering, analyzing and addressing his needs, or analyzing them and not addressing them, then that had a trickle-down effect on me. You're mad at me because you were taught that children are supposed to interact with adults in this way, and that's not how my mother and stepdad number one, or that's not how my mother and my uncle chose to lay a foundation for me. So now I'm not playing by your rule book, and you don't like it in the way your childhood tells you to address the child is physical, when I'm not used to that. I think I had maybe one. I can't even really remember my mom beating me. But I was going to say, I think I had maybe one good beating from all the important adults in my life. My uncle beat me one time because I told him I wasn't going to school. Had perfect attendance after that. Book nerd. My friend's aunt beat me for laughing. We was all laughing until like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I tried to like slide underneath the dresser because I was small enough for that back then. And she used to beat us with a bat, with a little plastic bat. I got beat that day. But I really don't recall a lot of physical discipline in my childhood. No. When I was a teenager, my mom hit me in my chest one time too. She was tripping that night though. I called. Somebody said I was short, and I said something about my parents being a midget in the garden gnome, and she didn't like that. Let me take a deep breath, y'all. I've been talking for almost an hour. Oh, check me out. Okay. Sorry. Apologize. But somebody told me I needed to tell my story, and I wanted to tell it thoroughly. So that's my story, guys. I've had 3 different primary father figures and an uncle. Feel my nose running a little bit, working with them kids again. Kids got cooties. And all I could think, I want my uncle to come make me some soup and give me some orange juice. And like I said, I was a very loved child. Okay? When I say it takes the village to raise a child, this child was well loved, well raised. And even the people who didn't like me, like, I didn't know they didn't like me until later. Like, I had a cousin, hating ass individual, when I was 13, tell a distant family member whose children were in my mother's care for a couple weeks that I was promiscuous and that at 13 I had had several abortions and all these boyfriends, and I didn't know. And the day I found out, I happened to go by and visit them before finding out, and they was complimenting my socks and telling me how nice my hair was. And then I get to my other relative's house where my mom was picking me up, and my mom is crying at this other relative's house. I'm like, what's going on? And she's telling this other relative how the person whose home I just left had been spreading rumors about her child. I was like, about me? What did they say? And I was heartbroken. So, you know, I don't had my share of shade thrown in this direction. But what doesn't kill you make you stronger. Stronger. Let's see, what else do y'all need to know about me? I hope people are still listening. Like, I promise I didn't mean to go on and on and on and on it. I wrote myself notes. I tried to stay on task. Staying on task. I used to be a teacher in Baltimore City. Before that, I worked with Upper Bound, both at Howard University and New Jersey City University. Those 2 experiences made me want to take my business management degree and go into the classroom. And like, I share this all the time. I don't say this just to be saying it or to get other people to be guests on the discussion room. But my whole life, people have felt comfortable opening up to me. And when I was in those counselor roles at Upper Bound, or as a teacher in Baltimore City schools, or even as a teacher now, I still feel very connected to young people. Even when they acted like jerks, they trust me, and I try my best to continue to foster that environment of trust with people. And I think that that's been a hurdle for me with blogging and hosting a podcast and making these Instagram captions, is being able to convey the things that I learn in conversation from others without breaking their trust and harming that safe space that they feel they've maintained with me. Yeah, I'm not gonna say much more on that, but I don't love teaching. I like it. I like being around the kids. I would much rather be a guidance counselor or support staff. I think the teachers are grossly underpaid, and I think I have a habit of taking my jobs too seriously in a way that doesn't necessarily make me a great person to work with. I'm not a bad employee or a bad coworker. I'm very respectful, but I don't like it when other people give up on the kids, or there's a difference between venting after a hard day and having prejudiced opinions, or being somewhere for the wrong reasons. Like when I was in the classroom the first time, because I thought I wanted to teach. And now that I'm back in the classroom, I need the funds, but I still want to impart knowledge and foster conversation for growth. And I see so much potential in the young people in my classroom, but they are so torn down because somebody who was trusted to educate them called them a dumbass or told them they was stupid, or like I said, I was a well-loved individual, and I'm so thankful that I never had a teacher. I'm not gonna say never because my kindergarten teacher was tripping, but I don't have any prominent memories of teachers tearing me down. And I had a lot of white teachers, so I don't think it's a race thing. I definitely appreciate growing up in New Jersey, Jersey City specifically, because I think when I got to high school and I lived in Middlesex County, I experienced a lot more racial bias in the classroom than I did in elementary school. I forgot to tell y'all how I got the name Ms Reid. My 5th grade gym teacher nicknamed me Ms Reid. I'm assuming because he was struggling with saying Shamiko. And it just stuck. My uncle calls me Ms Reid. My friends sometimes call me Ms Reid. Not a lot of them. My friends, they can call me by my name. But I don't want people to think that I just became Ms Reid when I became a teacher. Like, I've been Ms Reid since the 5th grade. Okay. Came to the classroom Ms Reid ready. And I know that I got the better nickname out of the bunch because he used to call my best friend Jughead. Okay. So shout out to Mr. M for nicknaming me Ms Reid all those decades ago in the 5th grade. But yeah, I think teaching is a big responsibility, and that people shouldn't do it if they're gonna let it crush them. I had some very soul-crushing experiences in the classroom, and I tried my hardest not to let it affect the way that I interact with people's children. That is something I take so seriously. Something I take very seriously is not letting my disappointment with administration or politics of education impact the way I step into that classroom for them kids. I will say I've been kind of weak on them this week and a half, and the assistant teacher, she had to step to him today, and kind of felt like she wilded out a little bit unnecessarily, but I wasn't mad at her. If that's what she felt was needed today, I'm in support of that. Getting back on track, though, a common thread between my 3 father figures is that they had daddy issues of their own. I shared a little bit about Buddha's background, but I'll say that stepdad number 1, something I realized, he just recently lost his stepdad, and that was hard. I wasn't able to attend the services for him, but I did attend his biological father's services a few years ago. And I said to my mom, wow, Mom, the way he interacts with his kids is the way his dad interacts with him and his siblings. And the way that he treats me, all loving and caring and guiding and all these. And now let me be careful, because he's a very loving father to his biological children, and his father was a very loving father to him and his siblings. So I don't want to say that like that. That's not at all what I mean. I think the way that he expresses love with me is different than the way he expresses love with his biological children, but very similar to the way he received it from his father with them and the way he received it from his stepfather with me. That's the point I was trying to make. And that's not necessarily an issue. It's just an observation that the type of relationship he had modeled for him between his biological father is how he carried his relationship with his biological children, and the type of relationship he had with his stepfather is how he carried his relationship out with me. I already shared, the mysterious whether or not Buddha's biological father was physically violent with his mother and the role that played on them. But let him tell it. Him and his dad best friends. Let any of them tell it. They're best friends with their dad, and I think that is so awkward. And that probably made their mom's job that much harder. But yeah, and then the number 2, my sister's dad. He has a very interesting upbringing, and I think that he's probably still processing it. So yeah, everybody got their own daddy issues. Okay, things manifest differently in everybody, which is why y'all all need the DAAAMN diary to discover, analyze, and address your needs. Okay, discovering, analyzing, and addressing my needs. My as in the user of the diary. I'll walk you through all these exercises, y'all. You can even get a free download and see what you're getting yourself into before you buy. This is what the free download look like. It's a reflection section in this corner because some activities for you to reflect on some things about your relationship with your dad and then your relationship with other people. Get you on. So what's next? Y'all done met Ms Reid. Y'all know a little bit about me now. I'm a Jersey girl. I might have to re-record this, y'all, because I feel like I'm so dry. And I'm really much more animated. Like before this recording here, the little practice run, and I was, do you know what today is? But I was eating chicken, so I didn't think that was a good idea to record while I was eating chicken. Chicken wings are my favorite food, okay? These are a few of my favorite wings. Bring it back, Shamiko. What's next? I feel like I'm extra close and all in your face. Podcast growth. I want to keep interviewing people. I have an interview lined up next week. I hope y'all like that. It should be real interesting. I'm going to interview sis who did the 100 Other Halves project in March. I'm looking for more people, though. More people with different types of stories to tell. So I met some interesting people in the past few weeks, especially at the panel, the Daddyless Daughters and Fatherless Sons discussion, both the one I volunteered for and the one that I was a panelist on. But I really want to talk to some people who was adopted. I don't think I've had anybody who was adopted just yet. So put your fishing reels out there and send your girl a referral for somebody who's willing to talk about their daddy issues that are rooted in their adoption. Yeah, so that's the goal of my podcast growth. I am putting it out there that I will interview Angie Martinez and Sean Corey Carter about their relationships with their dad, because Agnes was the truth and The Voice of New York was a dope book, and I just don't understand why ain't nobody out here asking Angie Martinez more questions about her disappearing act-ass father. Teaching others. I would like to grow out of classroom teaching and teaching other people how to get in tune with their emotions, to not be afraid to have this dialogue, these conversations, to admit these things. Because in my conversation with me and Maya last week, I touched on it a little bit, but I think that a lot of people who have one parent or grow up in one parent households feel guilty about addressing that emptiness that occurs from the absence of the other parent, like your mom or your dad, because there are some single dads out here killing the game. It's such an amazing job that you don't want to offend them by saying, I kind of needed that other person to be there too. So I want to make sure that I am teaching others to navigate that space. I would love to go back to school on a fellowship, somebody else paying for it, for sociology. I'm really interested in studying other people. or social work. More so sociology, though. I really like studying other people, not necessarily being a therapist or anything of that nature. I want to be a community resource. I want to continue to do work. I've been slipping on my obligations for the Children of Incarcerated Parents Coalition, but I have been working as a planning committee member for the Do More Baltimore Youth Poetry Festival, and that is so much fun. I'm a poet, y'all. I didn't even tell y'all I was poet. It's official. I gotta start over. It's gonna be a Meet Ms Reid part 2. We're gonna put this up for a week, and if people respond, they respond, but I'm gonna have to do this over because y'all ain't really meet me. Y'all met Ms Reid and all her daddy issues, and y'all didn't get to know me. So I'm gonna do it over. Yeah, I want to be a community resource, and I'm a speaker. Always been a speaker. Need people to start paying me for it, but I've been taking microphones and talking to people since the 3rd grade. I've been Ms Reid since the 5th grade, and I just be showing up and sharing my opinions wherever I go. So I would like to get paid to do that, to talk at education forums, to get teachers to realize that people talk about it all the time, that kids come with baggage. Oh, feed them breakfast. And, you know, I definitely think y'all should still feed them breakfast. But I think there's so much more to that. Like, yeah. I'm just going to end this now because I realized all of the things that I wanted to say that I didn't say and how dry I was before and how animated I am now. I just need to do a do-over. Okay? Just need to do a do-over. Might even do it tonight, so don't judge me if you see me with the same clothes on. And finally, I want to be an advocate for family empowerment. I don't want to just talk about daddy issues and say that men suck, or I'm hurt, or I got trust issues. My daddy abandoned me. I really want to do it so that people realize that these actions have real, lasting, long-term effects, right? And then they say, oh, I don't want to be that dad, right? And it ain't even about being a bad dad or absent dad or anything like that. Because some people had this when they had dads who died when they're young. But just making better choices in procreation, in how you speak to the parent of your child. Like, thank God my mother didn't speak bad about my father. My ill feelings towards him that I had were my own. My mother been telling me for the last 10 years when I was like, no, get on my face, dude. Why don't you just talk to him? You want me to go with you? We can sit down at Panera Bread. Just talk to him. Get to know him for yourself. Just talk to him. Just talk to him. She told me I was a product of love. She was in love with this man when she was a child. Okay? 15 years old. She bust the thing wide open, and here came me. But she made it her business to let me know he's not a monster. This person that I fell in love with was intelligent. This person that I fell in love with was caring. This person that I fell in love with was funny. This person that I fell in love with was all these things. But I saw him slowly decline and make poor choices because. And then I could no longer engage in it. And I was like, all right, sis, I feel you, you know, remove yourself from harm's way. Take me with you, boo. Take me with you. But yeah, be careful the things you talk about in front of your children, because the things you say becomes their internal voice, and it shapes the way they make decisions. Sometimes for good reasons, and sometimes not so much. And this has been me, Ms Reid, on the discussion room. See y'all next week, guys.